This is an oral history interview for Mary Donohue, a longtime resident of River Edge. The interview is being conducted on part of the River Edge Historic Commission. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon, Joan. How are you?
Good. So many times when you have an oral history interview, it starts back with the person's past. However, for this journey through your life and accomplishments, I wanted to start by asking you about how you spent 4th of July this year, 2013.
4th of July 2013 was a memorable day. It was so much fun. I was very pleased and surprised that the mayor and council had asked me to be the Grand Marshal of the July 4th parade. Now, July 4th is a very special day, not only in the country, but in our family, because our first granddaughter was born on the 4th of July. And it was a wonderful occasion. I was just thrilled.
That's excellent. Now, another thrilling story I know that you have is how you ended up living in River Edge. Can you tell us that story, how you came to River Edge?
Well, I am the wife of one of the greatest generation. My husband, Gerard Donohue, was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. And he was discharged after the war was over. He was discharged in 1948 because he had been assigned to Navy military government in the South Pacific. And I was one of the lucky people that was allowed to go down there. He went to the School of Naval Administration in Stanford University. There were 100 officers who were selected for this Navy military government program. And of the 100 men, only 7 wives chose to go with them at their assignments. So we went to the South Pacific. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Our first daughter was born there. And when he was discharged and we came back to the United States, we lived in Stuyvesant Town for 4 years. And then we decided we wanted to have a home because by this time we were expecting our 4th child and we wanted to live in a house. My husband came from Long Island. I came from the city. And we decided that we did not want to live in Long Island. We spent one weekend caught in traffic coming back, and we said, no, this is not the place for us. So then we decided New Jersey would be the logical place. But we didn't know anything about New Jersey. So we didn't know where to begin. So I said, you know what? We should write to the Archbishop of Newark. Write him a letter and ask him to give us a list of all the parishes in Bergen County that have Catholic schools. We were the products of Catholic schools, and I wanted my children to go to Catholic schools. By return mail, I get a beautiful letter from the Archbishop, and he lists all the schools, all the parishes where there are schools, and he has the pastor's name and the telephone number and the address. And we decided, well, we've got to do this systematically. We'll start in Fort Lee and head this way. You'd be surprised at the number of places that we visited where the pastor would say, this is not the town for you. This is not the town for a young family. Go west in Bergen County. So one day we were driving along Oradell. We had visited the parish in Oradell. And all of a sudden my husband says to me, where are we? This is a lovely little town. And I said, we're in River Edge. And I look at the list, but this is not for us because there is no school in this town. And he says, you know, let's stop at this real estate agent and see what he has to say. So we stopped at Ralph Rio's real estate and insurance agency. It so happened that Ralph lived right across the street from St. Peter's Church. And he says, what do you mean there's no school in this town? We just built a school. It's not on your list because it hasn't opened yet. It's not going to open until October. And we said, take us to that school. We want to see for ourselves where this school is. So he drove us to St. Peter's, and sitting on the front step of the rectory is Father Collins. And Ralph told Father Collins what the problem was, that we had this list from the Archbishop, but the school wasn't mentioned. And Father Collins said, Mary and Jerry, if you buy a house from Ralph Rio, you're going to have your little girl in kindergarten, because the kindergarten class was overextended already. So we saw 2 houses with Ralph Rio. We bought the second house from him. We paid $19,000 for our house. Our limit was $20,000, but Ralph was able to negotiate our house at 542 Fifth Avenue for $19,000. And that's how we bought our house. It seems strange because we pay more for our cars today than we did for this nice big house today.
And
so that's how we moved to River Edge.
And what year did you move to River Edge?
We moved to River Edge in 1952. I was pregnant with my 4th child, and the first Mass at St. Peter's was October 4th, 1952. And we came in from New York 6 days before David was born to attend the first Mass. So we feel very close to the parish. We have been very happy here.
Great. A story like that makes you believe in fate, that you just happened to be coming along in River Edge and it worked out so nicely
yes,
for you.
I think that it was meant for us to live here. And we've been very, very happy in River Edge.
So you mentioned that you were not originally from New Jersey, that you had grown up, did you say, in Manhattan?
Yes, I grew up in Manhattan, right across the street from Columbia University. I went to Catholic Grammar School, Ascension School, and then I went to high school, Cathedral High, and I won a scholarship to Manhattanville College. It was Sacred Heart, and that's where I went. At least I started there, and that's where all my life I've had wonderful teachers. I've had wonderful teachers in grammar school, in high school. There were teachers that really developed, and they were very interested in what I was interested in. And just to give you an idea, I loved Eleanor Roosevelt. She was my model. I loved Dorothy Day. She was another one of the great women models. And Claire Booth Luce. These 3 women were my special role models when I was growing up. And when I went to Manhattanville, I was very happy to note that the school was geared, well, as the superior of the school, the dean of the school told us one day that the women of our generation, post-World War II women, that we were going to be world changers. And that's how we were being educated. I think that our school was one of the first to invite black young women on scholarship to come to our school. Ethel Skakel, Jean Kennedy, Pat Kennedy were my classmates. So that this is how I became, aside from the fact that I admired Eleanor Roosevelt so much, my father was a staunch Republican and he was horrified that I liked Eleanor so much. But Eleanor was a great role model for me. And the teachers that I had at school just seemed to be an extension of all of the things that Eleanor Roosevelt believed in.
That's great. So let's go to when you moved to River Edge, and maybe if you can describe for us a little bit about what it was like to raise your family in River Edge. What was River Edge like in the 1950s?
Well, our taxes were $268. And I think our mortgage payments at the time were $97 a month, if you can imagine this. My husband commuted to New York to his job. It was 35 cents on the bus. And I remember when I told my mother and father that the commute would be 70 cents a day, they were shocked. They were used to the nickel commute in New York with the wonderful subway system that we had in New York. But these were the first big changes that at the time, and of course in $1950, this was important money.
Mm-hmm.
But the post office in River Edge was across the street from where it is now, in a little tiny shop where the dairy shop is now, where the milk store is now. That's where the post office used to be. Mr. McDonough had the town hardware, and he knew how to fix everything. And the grocery store at the time was called Honeydew, and then it became ShopRite, and now of course it's the Asian shop that we have in town. And Midland Avenue, from Midland Avenue ended at Forest Avenue, and beyond Forest Avenue it was a dirt road until the throughway came in, the Garden State Parkway came in. The schools in town were always great. Both the public schools and the Catholic grammar schools were great schools. Temple Shalom wasn't here yet. Temple Shalom wasn't added until later on, and then it became a wonderful addition to the town. We were very happy to see Temple Shalom open. And these are the things that I remember from the. We didn't have traffic lights on Kinderkamack Road. We didn't have the traffic lights at the. Of course, Riverdale wasn't in existence. Riverdale didn't come into existence until the late 50s, and my husband was on the first Regional Board of Education. And it was a wonderful high school. It started out as a wonderful high school, and it still is. So we were very proud of that.
Well, River Edge is a small town. It's a close-knit community. How did the town come together and celebrate different events? What was big in the town to bring everyone together?
Well, you know, when I look out my door today, I don't see a single child playing in the street. When we moved here to River Edge, there were 56 children in the intersecting backyards of our houses. 56! Of course, we lived on Vatican Hill. And our children and our neighbors' children all grew up to be very close friends. In fact, many children married each other in later life. But the place was very, very active with children. There were many bicycles. Believe it or not, there were bicycle racks at St. Peter's for 50, 100 bicycles. Children used to take their bikes to school. There is not a single child that goes to school today on a bicycle. Their parents drive them to school. Our children either walked or rode bikes. And you would leave your bike outside, no locks, no nothing. Just park them in the bike rack and they would be there when you left school. And there was no fourth festivities at first. The fourth festivities didn't begin until Mayor John Curran was elected. And then he began what we called at the time, we were part of the beginning of this, the fourth festivities, where we wanted people to stay in town for the 4th of July. At the time, we were very shocked to hear about all the accidents that were taking place on the roads, etc. And we said, you know, we should make it so that everybody wants to stay in town for the 4th of July. And that's how it started. And it's become this wonderful holiday that we have today.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned children playing in the street and the children in the town. I think it's pretty amazing, your own set of children. So can you tell us how many children you have and how many grandchildren you have?
Well, we had 8 great, wonderful kids. We had 6 boys and 2 girls. The oldest was a girl. She was born in the South Pacific, And an interesting little aside, when she was 16 and she went for her driver's license in Lodi, it was very interesting when the little man said to her, "Well, show me your birth certificate." So she pulls out her birth certificate, and she was very leery about showing it to him because it was signed by 5 kings. There were 5 kings on the island of Ponape in the Eastern Caroline Islands, and they all wanted to sign her birth certificate. And he looked at it askance. And Kathy explained that she was really a ward of the United Nations until she was 21 years old. She says, "I have 5 years to go." But she got her license. And of course, that was one of the big, how should I call it, milestones in our children's lives were when you first read your first book to your mother or your father or both of us, and we were very big on reading. When you read your first book, we took you to the library and you signed your name. You printed it because you couldn't even write. And you got your first library card. And of course, the second big milestone was getting your driver's license. And then, of course, it was registering to vote. So those 3 big milestones were very important holidays in our home, when each one of the children were either got their cards, their library cards, or their driver's license, which we weren't too happy about, but it's inevitable. And then, of course, when they registered to vote. And I am very happy to say that today, I know that I'm very proud of the fact that my children vote. And that means a great deal to me, because I think that the vote is a very important part of your life as a citizen.
Well, you do play a large role in politics in the setting of Bergen County, and we'll certainly talk about that in a little bit. But I also think we'd like to know, what were some of the challenges of raising such a large family, and of course, what were some of the rewards?
Well, I think that the challenges were that we wanted each child to be an individual. We didn't want them all lumped up as 8 kids. We wanted, and when we sat at the dinner table every night and we discussed the events of the day and what was happening, we were shocked sometimes at the ranges of opinion that we had in our crowd. We had radical bomb throwers, and then we had ultra conservatives in our house. So we had all kinds of ranges of opinion, and we encouraged it. We thought it was very good training for children to learn how to think for themselves. And I think that was one of the big challenges in having a large family, that you want each child to develop to his or her best capability and still be part of the family. And the nice thing that has come from this is that today, even though my children, some are Republicans and some are Democrats and some are ultra-liberals and some are ultra-conservatives, they all like each other. They all respect each other's opinions, and it's a pleasure to listen. It's a pleasure for me to listen to their different opinions and what they think.
And now, you said before, one of the reasons you moved to River Edge was because there was a Catholic school in town. So all the children went through St. Peter's?
Yes, our 8 children went through St. Peter's, and they all went to Catholic high schools with one exception. One boy really wanted to go to Riverdale, and we told him he could do that because he was a very good boy, and he was entitled to his choice. And then when they went to college, they went to all different colleges. And I'm happy to say that in our family, we have teachers, engineers, we have a bank president, we have a psychologist, we have a truck driver, we have a property manager. We have a wonderful variety of kids. And what I'm very proud of is that they're all wonderful fathers and husbands, and they like each other. When we get together for holidays, it's obvious, it's palpable how they like to be with one another. And we don't all live in the same community anymore. We are spread all over the United States. But when we find out, for example, that someone is coming from New Mexico, everybody gathers. When someone is coming from Georgia, everybody comes. And I think that that's very heartwarming.
So, of course, the children went through St. Peter's, went to school at St.
Yes.
Peter's School. Now, what was your involvement in the parish itself?
Well, my husband and I were very involved in the parish. We were very involved in the parent organizations in the school. And we were also very involved in the running of the parish. We were on the first parish council, both of us. As a matter of fact, that was very interesting because when the Archdiocese formed the first parish councils, they had for men, women, and youth. Would you believe that four members from our family were elected by the parish to be on the parish council? My husband and I served, and we have made wonderful friends. When my husband passed away 10 years ago, it was very touching to me and very comforting how wonderful all these friends that we knew from so many years ago just came.
So you were very involved in the parish, and you had, of course, 8 children, which is, a insurmountable job to many. You also were very involved in the town council, in the town politics. So, as I understand it, you were the first elected councilwoman for the town council. And if you could tell us how you became involved in the town politics and how that came about.
Well, I think that I had, not that I was one of these crazy feminists, but I really felt that women were not given the right role and the right stature in life. And I was looking through the names of the mayors and councils that we had. Not one woman. There wasn't one woman on one committee, nothing. The whole place was run by the men. And I figured it's time to try to get a woman elected. Now, I had been very involved in the parish. We were also very involved with the swim club. When the swim club was begun in River Edge, we were one of the first members. And having 8 children, you have 8 nuclei of friends that help you. I mean, they were the constituency. And my husband and I became very interested in I don't like to call it politics. I like in running the town. And I think it happened the very first week that we moved into town. We moved in town on December 8th, 1952. We bought our house on Labor Day in 1952. The first Mass at St. Peter's was October 4th. We moved in on December 8th. And on December 9th, a councilman knocks on the door and wants to register us to vote. And I said, and my husband said, isn't that wonderful that they're so interested in having people participate in town? And of course, he registered us to vote. And then all of a sudden he says, I want to let you know, and he said this very confidentially, he says, anybody who's anybody in River Edge is a Republican. And we said, oh, that's a problem, because we're Democrats. He wasn't too happy, but we let it go at that. He registered us, and we were very pleased. And then the following day was a Sunday, and we went up to Father Collins, and we said, Father Collins, he came from Jersey City. I said, Father Collins, who are the Democrats? who are the big Democrats in town? And he thought for a little while, and he says, George and Marge Hamill. You've got to talk to them. So we met George and Marge, and they told us that there were 14 Democrats in town. And we said, well, now we have 16. And this is how we started with the Democrats in River Edge. I think that River Edge is a very well-run town. The thing I like about River Edge, and I have many, many wonderful Republican friends in town, and what I like about River Edge is that the Wednesday morning after the election, it's all over. Everybody is very pleased and very happy with who has been elected. But I always felt that there was a need to have women represent us in town. After all, we're 50% of the population. And that's how I started. One Labor Day weekend, Bob Graylat, who eventually became our mayor, came to me and said, Mary, I need a running mate. I'm running for the council and I need a running mate. And I said, Bob, you've got one. And that's how I was first elected. I was the first woman elected. Now that's a disgrace. In 1983 that this happened. And I served for 2 terms. And then my husband was about to retire. And the children were beginning to go to college, etc. And I said, well, and I was also working at, I'm a teacher by profession. I was at Paramus Catholic. I taught there for 33 years. And they had made me the alumni director, and this was a very demanding job. And I said, well, I think that I'm going to leave this now, and I'm going to go on to other things. So I was very happy teaching, etc. And then my former 8th grade student, Kevin Rigby, who became the mayor of River Edge, asked me if I would be interested in running for freeholder of Bergen County. I said, I have never had any involvement in the county. And he says, that doesn't matter, but it's very important because you're also Hispanic. I was born in Cuba, and I married a wonderful Irishman. And he said, it would be a marvelous ticket. So I thought about it, and I said, that might be a very interesting thing to do. And my husband became my campaign manager. And the election took place in 1989. I was not expected to win. As a matter of fact, the Bergen Record did not even endorse me because they said I had no experience. They said I was a very nice teacher, blah, 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 but no experience in the county. And they were right. But I had a wonderful team, Tony Luna and Steve Rothman. We were the 3 Democrats running for office, and lo and behold, I won. I had very, very little money because we had 5 kids in college at the same time. I had very little money, but I think because I was a woman that I made it.
And what were some of your accomplishments? If you think back to either your years on the council or as a freeholder, what are you particularly proud of?
Well, on the council in River Edge, I was very proud that women became very interested in running for office. I had also been a county committee woman since 1954. So I served on the county committee for over 50 years. I resigned a number of years ago. But I think that getting women involved and empowering women, I think that it's wonderful when you empower others to do good things. And this is what I think that I accomplished, both on the council and as the freeholder. And one of the proudest things was that I saved the name of Van Saun Park, because the freeholders at the time wanted to name it Bergen County Park. And then the zoo came in and they wanted us to call it the Bergen County Zoo. And I said, no way. Mr. Van Saun, who was a great farmer here in this area, he donated this land as a park, and it should stay as a park. If you notice today, it's still Van Saun Park, and then it's Bergen County Zoo in Van Saun Park, and I'm very proud of that.
That's great.
But it was very difficult for me on the freeholder board because I was the only Democrat. It was 6-1 on the freeholder board, and it was very tough.
So what is the dream team? What is the dream team? What does that refer to?
The dream team was Tony Luna, who was Italian and Catholic, and Steve Rothman, who was Jewish, and Mary Donohue, who was Hispanic and Irish. And that was the dream team. We figured that we covered all the bases in Bergen County, and we did. It just so happened that I was the only one elected. It's another little story how that happened, but I was elected. But Steve and Tony and I remain very, very good friends to this day. After he lost the freeholder seat, Steve became our congressman, and I worked in his office doing immigration work for 16 years, and I loved every day that I worked there.
Can you speak a little bit more about your work with Congressman Rothman?
Steve is a very principled, very dedicated, very well-motivated public servant. He really is. He's not serving right now because he lost a primary election, which was to my great sorrow, because he ran a wonderful office. His office was very constituent-oriented. Just to give you an idea, at the time when we closed our office in January of 2013, I had 4,000 immigration cases that had to be turned over to the new congressman. The work that we did with Medicare, with veterans, with Social Security, all I can say is that office, the number of spiritual and corporal works of mercy that were accomplished in that office by the beautiful people who worked there. There were 10 of us working in that office. My colleagues were absolutely tops. They were wonderful, wonderful people. And they were very dedicated to their jobs and to their constituents. And I taught for 33 years, and then 16 years for Steve. And I was very, very happy with both of my professions. I loved every single day of the 33 years I was in front of my classroom, and I loved working for Steve. And now, at 88, I find myself, am I retired? Am I unemployed? And one of my grandkids, when I mentioned this to him, I said, Mike, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm retired or unemployed. And he looks at me, because I had signed up for Bergen Community College for that learning in retirement. I have signed up for 4 courses there. He said, Gaga, you're a full-time student. So that's what I call myself now. I'm a student.
Well, in addition to your time as a student these days, you also are involved in the Historic Commission in town.
Yes.
And now, recently, the local historic commissions around in Bergen County have been in the press trying to save different historic sites.
Yes.
What do you see as some of the challenges the commission faces?
Well, sometimes it is very difficult to convince public officials that history is worth saving. Fortunately, I think that we have had in Mayor Watkins and now in Mayor Moscaritolo and the council, people who are becoming very aware that history is worth saving. And Phyllis D'Angelo, who runs the River Edge Historic Commission, is a very, very dedicated public servant. She really is. But I'm also vice chairwoman of the Historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission. This commission was started in 1995 to operate Newbridge Landing. Newbridge Landing is one of the best kept secrets in the state of New Jersey. And when I say best kept secrets, I mean that in a derogatory manner, because it shouldn't be a best kept secret. It should be a very widely known secret. More of the American Revolution took place in the state of New Jersey. 273 skirmishes and battles took place in our state, more than in any of the other 13 original colonies. Why isn't this recognized? Why is Williamsburg the place where we all think of the American Revolution? Nothing happened there. We had the Newbridge Landing is that little bridge was one of the most important events of the American Revolution. If it hadn't been for that bridge, the revolution probably would have ended at Fort Lee with the surrender of Washington to Cornwallis's troops. So that we are very dedicated to building a museum and a library at the site that we have there, and we hope that it will be a little Williamsburg. We live 7 miles from New York City. The favorite touristic destination in the world, and we're 7 miles from New York. We should have tourists swarming to this place, and this would be a wonderful economic engine for River Edge also. Think of the businesses that we could have related to Newbridge Landing. So it's been a struggle to keep this treasure from totally vanishing and deteriorating, but we're going to keep at it.
Well, I think it could be safe to say that you won a victory with a recent fundraising event that happened.
Yes, we did. We had a recent fundraiser. We are trying to build a museum and a library, and we're not accepting federal, county, or state funds. We are doing this with volunteers. We have approximately 1,500 members of the Bergen County Historical Society, and we hope to be raising the money to build our museum. These are our fundraising efforts are going there. And we think that it's going to happen. We think it's going to happen. But the other big things that we did that have gone unnoticed, a little bit unnoticed, we changed the name of the train station. That train station had, since 1903, had been called North Hackensack. Now, what is North Hackensack? Who is the mayor of North Hackensack? It was just an arbitrary name that was given to it by New Jersey Transit. Well, after many, many conferences and arguments and meetings and conferences, we got New Jersey Transit to admit that there was no such place as North Hackensack, and that historic Newbridge Landing at River Edge was the proper name for that station. We also changed the name of the post office that also had been called North Hackensack Post Substation. And it was by an act of Congress, it was changed to Historic Newbridge Landing Post Office.
Well, that is very important work that you do, and certainly it's important for River Edge as a town. Looking back on your time that you spent in River Edge, can you tell us one change that has happened in the town that you think has really been something very positive?
I think that the ecumenical feeling of all the churches in town has been a wonderful thing that's happened in town. When we first moved here in 1952, the little churches were little enclaves of their own. Temple Shalom didn't exist. And at first I think that there was resentment that St. Peter's was here because we were going to put up our own school. And many people in town thought this was divisive and a threat. But St. Peter's has been a wonderful addition to the town. We've had a park named at the southern end of town for one of my 8th grade students at St. Peter's. I also taught school for 5 years at St. Peter's. It's named for him. And we have had wonderful mayors and council persons coming from St. Peter's. We have been enriched by the contributions that Temple Shalom has made, that all the different churches have made. When one of the churches was having difficulty because they were building, they came to St. Peter's and we welcomed them, and vice versa. And I think that this ecumenical feeling that we have in River Edge, all of the churches, is one of the big changes for the better that I've seen in town.
In hearing about all of your accomplishments, you know, it seems to me that your life really screams out the word role model. Role model to your students, certainly to your family, with your children, in your work as a first elected councilwoman for the town, your work with Congressman Rothman as a freeholder, and certainly currently as a member of the Historical Commission in town and a vice president of the Bergen County Historical Society.
But you know, there was one thing I forgot to tell you about. All the years of President Clinton's administration, his 2 terms, I was a member of the Democratic National Committee. So that this was great. This was national. And I was also elected for a short time chair of the National Hispanic Caucus. So for 8 years during that administration of the president, I was able to go to Washington and actually participate in a lot of the national events that were taking place. So that also is a nice thing. And I've noticed that there have been many more women that have been selected by the governors to participate in the Democratic National Committee. So I think that that's all good.
So through all these events and accomplishments, did you ever see yourself as a role model? Is that how you see yourself?
I don't. I primarily see myself as a mom and as a teacher. And I'm very, very proud of the service that I've been able to do, the civic services that I've been able to do. But all of that has always been subservient to my role as wife and mom. Wife and mom have been my favorite careers.
Well, this certainly has been an afternoon filled with wonderful stories and all the exciting things that you've done throughout your life. And we truly thank you for your time this afternoon.
And I thank you. I think this is a very interesting, wonderful opportunity. And I hope that my children see this someday too.
And grandchildren.
And grandchildren. Oh, and I forgot to tell you that I'm expecting my 9th great-grand. I have 17 grands and 9 greats.
Well, that is truly an accomplishment.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's, I hope that we will be adding good citizens, more good citizens, and that these little grandchildren, well, they're not little anymore, of the 17 grandchildren, 16 have already graduated from college. And I'm hoping that they will follow in the wonderful example that their moms and dads. I'm very proud of what my children have done with their children. And of course, those little greats are absolutely the best babies you've ever seen in your life.
Can do no wrong, I'm sure. Great, thank you so much,
Thank
Mary.
you.